Yes, hello and welcome to another edition of the Make Australian Football Fun Society. Joining me from the back of a taxi in London is Josh Parrish. Josh, how are you, mate?
I'm feeling a little ill, actually.
Yeah.
So apologies if we have to pause the podcast at any point. No need to call the emergency services.
No worries. Look, I mean, it's a two-man game today. We some say it couldn't be done, but we are here to prove the doubters wrong. It's kind of like we've got a red card. You know, Teo's out, Joe's out, Bruno couldn't make it. We were too late scrambling to actually organise some other guests. So if you do want to join the show, the best way to do that is to join via the comments, and already people are doing that. Run them memes mad late. Daniel says, why did it get pushed out by 5 minutes? Oscar says, low energy from the start, boys, not good enough. Run the meme says, something, best ability, shake your booty, no Teo, no party. That's a lot of abuse in the first 3 minutes of the show.
I feel like we've got our backs to the walls already. I'm going to be honest.
You know, but I like it because what I feel like we've got an early red card, right? And we're now playing on the counter attack. So, you know, I'm going to take that shit from the comments. All right. Simon says the others were injured in the warm. Yeah, look, not everyone's here, but that's all right. The party is not so much about quantity, it's about quality, and we're coming with some of the best stuff you're going to see. So look,
Stoll, I think what we need to do is we need to introduce a siege mentality on this podcast. It's us against the world, us against the viewers, in fact. And I think we've got to look to Uzbekistan as the model, really. I mean, their podcast game has just soared in recent years. The funding for their national podcast network is something that we need to recreate here in Australia, or in Barcelona, in fact.
I think this podcast needs to go back to Oceania. I think we need to do recordings in Fiji from some kind of Fijian resort.
Hey, I think I'm on board with that plan.
Yeah, exactly. Look, let us know in the comments, as always, you know, what made Australian football fun for you this week. Let us know your questions. Let us know your ideas. It's been a big week. We'll go through a bit of the Sam Kerr stuff. We'll go through a bit of the A-League stuff. We'll touch on it all, as we always do. Daniel says, MAFFS microwave buckwheat pillow edition. Don't even really know what that means, but I like it, Daniel. I like the aggression. There's some early challenges coming in. This is kind of a very RB Leipzig style podcast. We press the viewers press us back. We've got this a comment coming in from, look, I'm going to be honest, your name is in some kind of Russian letters, and
Cyrillic, I think, is the
Cyrillic. Okay, how would you go about pronouncing that, Josh? Do you reckon?
Absolutely no idea.
I'd go with Opa Shembalun, but I have no idea. Quality and best stuff you can see aren't exactly synonymous with Stoll microwave cat. All right, guys, look, don't worry. As long as you can hear me, all right? Just imagine how good looking I am, and then hear my dulcet tones. You're fine. In fact, actually, this week, I got compared to Andy Robertson. I don't know if you saw that, Josh, on Twitter. What do you think? Do you think I am the Andy Robertson of Barcelona/Australia?
Well, I don't know if you put in the kind of Tyler shift that Andy Robertson tends to. You know, I feel like you stay in your position. You're not, there's that viral video of him in a Liverpool game just pressing and then just continuing to press all the way to the far right top corner of the field. He doesn't win the ball. I don't know why he's so lionized for that bit of play, but people seem to like the effort. We just want warriors. We don't really need good footballers. We just want people who just, effing die for 3 points.
You know what? That's kind of like my attitude to finding fun in Australian football. I'll just keep going until, even though it's like, man, you've probably gone too far. You're probably way out of position at this point. I'll just keep going until I find it. Maybe I won't even find it, but still. And people will be like, you know what? I like that you tried it.
Hey, it's about the journey.
We've got a correction on the name pronunciation that we just read out. The problem with that is that I think I'm going to stuff up the correction as well. But Aron's heavy. Aron's heavy. Would you go with that, Josh?
Your guess is as good as mine, mate. I'm afraid, but thank you for tuning in.
Shaky Booty says he ain't Aron's heavy. He's my brother. Okay, look, I don't know what's going on, but we appreciate all the interaction we can get. Get your ideas in, get your comments in. Let us know what's going on. Josh, let's start with what made Australian football fun for you this weekend.
I am like quite amused by the wall-to-wall coverage of Sam Kerr. Just you go onto, like, let's say any newspaper, click on the soccer section. So Sydney Morning Herald. There is
You
one, two,
scroll
three,
very far to find the
one,
soccer
two, three,
section,
four,
but eventually-
5 think pieces in a row on Sam Kerr. How has one drunken taxi ride captured the nation's attention in this fashion? I mean, the last time, I went out and had a bit too much to drink, I didn't get think pieces. I didn't really even think about what it meant for me to, get into that state. I'm amused by how obsessed people are over this one way or another. I don't understand how you could have a strong feeling on the situation.
Well, I mean, unless it's your taxi, and then I can understand why you'd be a bit pissed off. But look, I mean, is it the most famous spew in Australian history? Forget football. I mean, like,
I think the kit. It's Sam Kerr, and then it's the kit, the spew kit.
Yeah. Look, let us know in the comments if you can think of any historical spews that come close to this. But it was quite an amazing. I guess it was the process of what happened. It was like an announcement out of nowhere. Sam Kerr has been charged for, what was the actual charge? Basically, like racism against
aggravated racial harassment or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm the first one to speak out against aggravated racial harassment. I always find it funny when people say I'm the first one to speak out. You're like, well, I mean, are you the first one? I mean, there's a lot of people. I saw that a bit, recently. It was like, I'm the first one to say against, I don't know, when fans are acting up or when this is happening, You're like, well, I mean, it's not that much of a leap. You're not going out against everyone else. But yeah, so it came out that Sam Kerr used this racist language. We didn't really know who against or what she'd said, and there was a big worry about, is Sam cancelled? And everyone was getting a bit, oh my god, what are we going to do? And then, there was, Football Australia were like, oh, we didn't know anything about it. We have no idea.
We're having press conferences to say we didn't know anything.
Yeah, I know that that is true. You can tell that they didn't know anything because there's no way that they would be like, hey, you know what? We'll do a press conference on the day that our captain is going to court. I mean, that is something that like Sam Kerr probably should have told Football Australia. Just like a little heads up, like, hey guys, look, next week, it's tough to say. I'm going to be busy. You ever seen Law and Order? Yeah. So basically. Same kind of vibe.
Any of the other members of this podcast who didn't show up today, we can only assume that they've been given a court summons.
It's good. You know what? Oscar makes the point. Stole does not stand for it. That's right. I do not stand for. I'm not sure what I don't stand for, but I'm sitting down.
We're drawing a line in the sand under something. We're not quite sure what.
Run the Meme suggests that Bon Scott might have done the most famous spew. I can't remember. I don't know. Is there like, what specific spew was that from Bon Scott, or is that a comment on AC/DC's music? Paletti says, does spewing absolute garbage in the press account? No. I mean, because that is an Australian tradition that has been done for years and years and years, not in just football, in all aspects. Simon makes a good point. I'm just amazed at the fact that it happened so long ago and the trial is so far into the future. I mean, there is a possibility. There was a lot of criticism about Sam Kerr not telling Football Australia. We all had big nights. Is there a chance she forgot? Is there a chance she was like, oh shit, yeah, a year ago I had a massive night, and oh shit, I gotta go to court this week. So awkward. But yeah, so basically it was like last year the incident happened. Apparently she's in the back of a taxi, spews or something, police get called. She calls, from what's been reported, which by the way, it was reported by The Sun, which it's funny that football fans are like, we do not, The Sun is the worst.
Never by The Sun, hashtag.
Never by The Sun. What they did with Hillsborough's disgrace.
They only tell lies. And then when it's something suits,
it's something that we like,
reinforces our beliefs, it's like, yeah. Spot on, 100%.
Guys. Good stuff. So, like, no one was saying like, oh, well, this information does come from The Sun, so let's just. And there was a lot of when we didn't, on the first day when this all came out, there's a lot of, let's wait until we know all the facts. And then we didn't really know all the facts. We just heard one piece of information that we liked, and we're like, oh, okay, in that case, it's all good. We like it. So it was pretty funny that it was all don't buy The Sun, don't buy The Sun. Sun is terrible. The Sun is garbage. And then it was like The Sun said something positive, but said something that kind of makes us like Sam Kerr again. Yes, all good. It was such an odd week. I mean, I thought, like, look, here's my searing hot take on it. You shouldn't throw up in the back of someone's taxi, right? If you're gonna do it, look, we've all been there. We've all been there. I don't know if you've been there, Josh. We've all been there. You get the taxi driver to pull over. At absolute worst, wind down the window and just straight out onto the street. Maybe it gets the side of the taxi, but you can just spray that off with a hose. Absolute worst comes to what. This is my advice to you. If you're ever in this situation and you can't pull over the taxi, and for whatever reason you're in a car, I haven't done this in a taxi, but I have done this in a friend's car. It's pretty disgusting. Prepare yourselves. You basically spew into your own shirt. So you cover you use your shirt, you pull that up over your mouth. Yeah, but it contains the spew within your shirt, and you can kind of it contains the damage, basically. That's my point, right? I don't think it's very nice to throw up in the back of someone's taxi. I don't know what the situation was, but not the best. Anyway, whatever's happened, the police have been called. Not sure why. Seems like a big thing for police to be called, but maybe there was some issue over payment of
paying the cleaning
or whatever.
fee. Exactly. You only assume,
whatever. Anyway, the police get called. Maybe some comments get made. Maybe they don't. We still don't actually know what was said. And then a year later, they go, "Okay, we're going to get you." Now, it does seem, it's not the most riveting episode of Law and Order. I think.
I want Ice Cube in the background, so it'd be like, so you're telling me that she threw up in the back of a taxi?
Yeah.
I like how Ice Cube is always there in those crime episodes, so they can explain the plot to him, because Ice Cube doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what's happening.
Ice Cube is a detective of 30 years, but doesn't seem to understand everything. It was funny. If you ever saw The West Wing, there was a character called Donna who was I don't know. She was one of the chief of staff's number one assistant, and she didn't seem to understand anything about politics, because her role was always for the audience to explain everything to her. So she somehow got a job at the White House, and every plot would have to be okay, so what is a census? And they'll be okay, so we ask all the country, to get statistics about them. Oh, why do we do that? And it was just a way for the audience to know. But anyway, I would think if Ice Cube was in the episode of Sam Kerr, Law and Order, he would be the one who would be sounds like you scored an own goal this time. and then Sam Kerr's just there okay, well, whatever, mate. So
sounds like you'll be hamstrung by those legal proceedings.
Yeah, it would have been that, right? And
London's finest. They took a year to build their case. They've been working tirelessly on it. Actual violent crime, break-ins, thefts.
And this is the weird thing, is that we have to wait another year for the trial. Come on. Surely we could just get this sorted out in 5 minutes. Anyway, whatever. You don't need to hear any more opinions about this or blah, blah. But, and because also, again, we don't really know exactly what happened. So you want to reserve a little bit of, in 1 year, we might find out what happened. Hopefully this case gets dismissed and thrown out, and Sam Kerr's, free to do whatever you want. But it was odd, because at the same time, it was I saw Andrew Bolt came out and was hey, this is because they held up the Aboriginal flag and bent the knee or
Matildas,
hoisted
by their own petard.
I did love that with the Andrew Bolt thing. He was this is because they've bended knees or something. Yeah, we should never bend our knees. When we're sitting, we should sit with our legs perfectly straight. Absolutely no bending of knees ever.
Maybe that's why she couldn't get the spew out of the taxi. She was too stiff in the joints.
Yeah.
She didn't have the lateral mobility.
The mobility. Oh, she's injured. Well, she wasn't injured at the time. So maybe the injury is a big cover for all this. Maybe this was to distract. Maybe it's like the Royal Palace, and maybe she needs to release a photo that's done.
It's obviously photoshopped. Yeah.
Of her in the taxi looking all good, shaking the taxi driver's hands, having a great time.
Except it's obviously AI generated with 8 fingers on each hand. Yeah.
So basically what I found weird, so you had that reaction of people flipping out. And again, what basically happened, as seems to happen all the time, is we just project whatever we want to put out there, whatever kind of views that we already have about. This was a woman got drunk, vomited in a taxi, and had a bit of an argument. we didn't need to extrapolate, what does this mean for Australia, and what this
What does this
actually
say about
says.
us as a people,
Yeah,
as a nation?
exactly. Like, people, and then, but the other flip side of that was the weird. Like, I mean, I found it totally weird that people were like, "Well, I wish Sam Kerr had vomited on me," and I wish Sam Kerr's the best. I love Sam Kerr so much. I wish I was in the taxi. I wish he
If
vomited
Sam
in my
Kerr
face.
called me a stupid white bastard, it would be the best day of my life.
Yeah, it's like,
Well, you're a
look,
pretty
it's like,
sad life.
yeah, like that's look. I love Messi. I don't want him to come into my house, vom, and say you're a stupid white bastard, you stupid kangaroo bastard, and leave. Like, I'd be a bit like, Messi, what the fuck was that? Like,
What if he called you Bobo?
No. I don't want that. That's what I mean. I don't want to be abused by someone I love. Like, why? I don't want my friends to say this. Why would I want someone, that I admire so much? I did find that bizarre. That like, yeah, if Sam Kerr called me a stupid white bastard, I'd be so happy and proud. Why? She clearly doesn't like you. Like, why would you want to annoy her? It was a bizarre moment. I understand, the culture wars are so ingrained now that it feels like the fact that we can take a spew, and a spew can be the line in the sand that we have a culture war, that we're like, oh, I'm on this side of the spew. Oh, well, I'm on the opposite side of the spew. Like, my goodness, it is. I mean, it does show you how popular Sam Kerr is, how powerful the Matildas brand has become, that this is something that has rocked the nation. But yeah, a bizarre week in Australian football. But it's when Australian football obviously goes out into the wider society. I mean, I'm not in Australia at the moment, but just seeing the little internet furor about it was insane.
At the same time as we had the NRL in Vegas and the rugby league players being put under 24-hour surveillance and basically being given the head of police's personal phone number so they could call him if they got in a scrape. And we all rejoiced as they came home without any incidents. It's like the bar is so low. And then for whatever reason, like female sports people tend to occupy like this sainted position where they can do no wrong. But if they do wrong, then it's like the end of the world. Like this, I think Vince Rigari pointed out on Twitter, this just sounds like something Shane Warne would have done in 2003, and we would have gone, Warney, not ideal, but he's a larrikin, and I think Sam Kerr is sort of a similar personality. I don't think she's like some saintly being. She's just like a kind of slightly rough around the edges, quite stubborn, incredible sports person.
Yeah, I do think there is this modern trend of like, we idolize celebrities and footballers as part of that group, to an extent where it's not only that we like what they do, whether they are great at football, or they produce music, or they make movies, or whatever it is, but we project all our values onto them, and that they must kind of be in step with everything that we believe in. And if they go slightly against, or they do something that we slightly don't like, it's this like, oh my God, I've been betrayed. Like, it's just a bizarre relationship that the public seems to have with celebrities, and I think part of it obviously comes from like social media, and the fact of like, like Taylor Swift is, I guess we're getting a bit out of Australian football with Taylor Swift, although, as we've talked about previously, massive A-League fan. She was, she was texting me this week going, oh my God, Daniel Pena, I was telling you for ages, he's going to come good. What a player he is. And I was like, Taylor, please leave me alone. I'm going to have to block your number. And then she was like, did you see the counter pressing of Sydney FC in the first week? And I was like, yep, okay, I get it. Yeah, I'll be like, sick. It's all good. Anyway, but with Taylor Swift and the Swifties, right? You see this thing of like, there's a bizarre thing where you can't just like Taylor Swift anymore. You have to be part of the community that spends all their time online, like celebrating this person and lifting this person up to a point of like, to me, it reminds me of like religious fanaticism.
It's
like,
a cult, yeah.
Yeah, and religion has really gone down. And look, I'm going to tell you, my grandma, my grandparents especially, were so religious and so fanatical about, God and Jesus and all these things. But, fine, good for them, good for them. But every time you spoke to them, they just would always talk to you about it. And, have you been to church? And God this, and Jesus says this, and God. And, you're sitting there as a 5-year-old just like, whatever. Yeah, sounds great. Look, I just want to watch The Lion King in Greek. Can I just do that? Thank you so much. But it feels like we have less of that now in modern society. But that desire to do that has almost been replaced by celebrity worship. And the fact that people spend their whole lives, at least online, telling you like their whole personality is based on this person is amazing. Or even like you see it in football, people create accounts to represent players, or they're repped by a player. And it's like, yeah,
my profile picture is like Anthony Martial or something.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, I'm repping Pedri. Like I'm repping Havertz. I'm a Havertz rep. And then it was tough for us like Havertz reppers, but then now he's doing well at Arsenal. We're eating again. The haters said we couldn't do it. It's like, what? Man, just be yourself. It's okay. Just I like these players. I don't like these players. Sometimes these players are good. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes there are good players who do bad things. There are bad players who do good things. It's all okay. It's all fun, this thing. But I don't know. I mean, I was stunned how the whole week played out and felt kind of like out of step with it all.
Yeah, look, I mean, it wasn't especially fun for me, but it was funny, and I think that made it enough. Stoll, what was fun for you in Australian football this week?
Oh, well, you know what? After Taylor Swift did text me all the time about Daniel Pena, I thought Daniel Pena's performance against the Wanderers was really fun because Pena is a player that we really loved when he was at the Jets. He was kind of like, he was very Angel Torres before Angel Torres, like would take kind of really ambitious shots, would do like random step overs, would always be electric, even in a team like the Jets, what he was playing for originally, that was struggling. And I think there's one thing about being like an amazing player when your team's at the top of the table. There's another thing about being a really fun, exciting player when your team is towards the bottom of the table. Now, he had it at the Jets. He's had it this year, obviously, at Western United. Got to say as well, he's had a lot of issues in terms of his wife with her medical treatment stuff. That and she's in Brazil. Like that couldn't be easy. Western United as a club have a lot of issues in terms of their stadium and where they are. And I actually think, although they're bottom of the table and they've struggled, I really think the stadium issue has had they don't know where they're playing and the uncertainty of that. And because I do think there's a decent team there, and I think Aloisi is a decent coach, and I think there could be signs of life with that team, with that squad. But just to see Daniel Pena just really turn it on again, really show us like why he's one of the most MAFFS players in the league. Yeah, it was so good. And there's almost like a resistance when you're doing it for a team that is down the bottom of the table. Because when you're down the bottom of the table, obviously we don't have relegation, but still it's not nice to finish bottom of the ladder. There is a desire, or there is a natural kind of feeling to not take risks, to not try too much, to just get away with the basics and not, stick your neck out and get chopped off. And the fact that Pena is taking those risks, is doing the fun things, is creating chances and doing things that other players can't or don't have the courage to do, that was what was fun for me this week. So I
loved his assist. I loved his assist for the first one for Matthew Grimaldi. To juggle it and then lob it up for a volley was just ridiculous. And I really like Grimaldi as well. I've seen him in the NPL a fair bit, and I was thinking he's got something about him. It's nice to see him getting on the score sheet a little bit. But yeah, that was just outrageous. And I noticed his goal celebration was like quite tame this time around, maybe scarred by the last time when he jumped up on an advertising hoarding and then injured himself on the way down. But I really enjoyed his performance as well.
You know what? I thought as well, it was good to see Rukavica get on the score sheet. He was someone that, for a while we were talking about, should he be in the Socceroos? And there was, I think, 2 seasons where he was top goal scorer in Israel, and he was like scoring 30 goals or something in a season.
And he was kind of the only Australian striker who was scoring anywhere at the time. Like it was in any sort of form.
And I'm sure some people will be like, oh, well, it's only Israel and blah, blah, blah. That league's not too strong. But he was also scoring in Europa leagues, or it might have been Conference League. I think it was Europa League group stages at least. But he was in really good form, and it felt like he was one of those players who he'd been away so long that we hadn't kind of seen the best of him. He hadn't been in the Socceroos much, and it's interesting. There are some players who they have these really long careers in kind of Europe or in other parts of the world, but because they're not in Socceroos contention or they're not really into, we just kind of ignore them. But they kind of become legends in those places. Now they're not the top 5 leagues. Like James Holland is one that I kind of think about a bit. Is that he's been in Austria for years and years and years and years, just the solid, defensive midfielder, captain of Austria Vienna, of Lask. He's played in like Europa leagues and Champions leagues and that type of thing. Just never really gets a look in at soccer. Now I'm not saying that he is necessarily better than the options that we've had in there in the past. But, he's just a really solid player who's had, I think, a really good career, but flies under the radar. And I think Rukovic is one of that. And to see him come back and score, at least, look, he hasn't had a great season. Again, problems of Western United. But I do just like to see, like, I feel like Rukovic over the years was a little underappreciated.
Yeah, I love those players who become like random Australian legends in weird spots overseas. Like I remember Mustafa Amini, after he left Dortmund, he went to, I think it was Denmark, and he was playing for AGF Aarhus, and he played like over 100 games there and was an absolute club legend. And I remember before he left, I think it was the season where they qualified for the Europa League. And there's this like town square just chock full of people, and they're all chanting, "Oh, Musti Amini," and he's like crowd surfing and stuff. Like it was awesome. Like I love those stories.
Let us know in the comments, who is your favorite Australian cult football hero? And what we're talking about is the overseas one. So another one would be Scott Chipperfield, who had a decent Socceroos career for sure. I remember that goal he scored against South Africa, unbelievable. But such a legend at Basel. It's always kind of cool to see. It's always kind of cool to see also when you meet people from these towns and you tell them, all these cities, and you're like, oh yeah, this person. Bresciano was obviously a legend, kind of at the clubs he played for, whether it was Parma or Palermo. It always comes up when I speak to Italians. Charmander the Andy says here, Robbie Slater is a celebrity in Lyon. That's really cool to see. It was really actually funny. I met a German guy here in Barcelona, and he's from Ulm, which is the town. I think it's quite close to Munich. He's from Ulm, and Ulm is the place where David Zrilic played under Ralf Rangnick, which started the whole. This is why Sydney FC are doing their RB Leipzig press now, is because Driller played under Rangnick at Ulm. They stayed in contact. Rangnick would eventually ask Driller to come and work at RB Leipzig in the under-17s, under-19s, and he spent many years there. And this guy was like, oh my God, David Zrilic. Oh, he was my hero, because Ulm had basically one season in the Bundesliga top division, and it was with Driller. And, they battled relegation, but Driller was the striker, and he scored, I think, 10 goals or something, but, important goals for them. And for this guy, it was unbelievable that I knew Driller. I've met an Osasuna fan who, from Pamplona. Pamplona is a relatively small city here in Spain. And the first thing he said to me was, oh, John Aloisi. Oh,
yeah, they love him.
We kind of think of like Viduka and Kiel and Cahill as like the big Socceroo superstars. And I guess Sam Kerr and Caleb Ford, kind of the modern day players as well. But I do love the ones who are really popular, maybe have flown a little bit under the radar in Australia, but massively appreciated. One thing also that I want to say was really fun this weekend was Thierry Henry in his analysis of Erling Haaland and what Erling Haaland can do better in his movement and what he needs to do. And if you think about this is the greatest ever Premier League player, in my opinion, analyzing probably the guy who's going to be the greatest ever striker in the Premier League, at least in terms of goals per game, for sure. Whether he stays in the Premier League is really going to be the only, I think, caveat on whether he breaks Shearer's record, basically. If he stays in the Premier League 10 years, easy going to break Shearer's record. And Henry, talking about what Haaland can learn, was saying he didn't say he needs to be more like Viduka, but he says Viduka used to do this thing, basically, which was make this run, take it on the turn, get the shot off. And it just shows you like the level of regard that, a guy from Melbourne is held in terms of the all-time greats of the Premier League. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I loved hearing Mark Viduka's name come up in another podcast I was listening to in the context of doing a Viduka, which in the UK means your contract is expiring and suddenly you go up a gear and like start scoring crazy amounts of goals and performing out of your skin.
Yeah, you know who used to do that a lot? Theo Walcott. I remember Theo Walcott at Arsenal he'd kind of be like, well, whatever player. And then it was like the 6 month coming into his contract renegotiation, goal, assist, goal, like just like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And then contract signing, just like, okay, whatever. I do find it amazing that if you can turn it on like that, you should be able to. Maybe it's a coincidence, but it does seem like, some players can turn it on a little bit more than others. Viduka seemed like he was definitely one of them. There's a story of when Viduka was at Leeds. Apparently, David O'Leary, who was the coach, he came up with some pre-season running exercise, which was basically like, I think you had to run, the 100 meters length of the pitch up and back, I don't know, 4 times or something, and you needed to do it with under a certain time. And if you didn't do it under a certain time, you had to do it again until you got it under a certain time, right? And so apparently Viduka was just like, well, that's stupid. And he was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, hold on. If I can't do it the first time, how am I going to be able to do it the second time when I'm more tired? Like, this is ridiculous. Huh? And so anyway, so O'Leary's like, how dare you challenge me, blah, blah, and then finally just he's like, oh, if you don't do this, you're not going to play first game of the season. And Viduka's like, yes, I am. Come on, I'm the best player here. What are you talking about? I'm not doing this, and you're going to play me. Oh, this is stupid. I'm leaving. Leaves, apparently. Gets the first day of the season. All right, guys, team today, Viduka up front, Kill on the left. It's just like, yeah, that's how it is. Don't challenge the GOAT.
I heard he called O'Leary a stupid white bastard, actually, at the time. It was quite controversial.
Look, let's go on to some of the other results.
Yeah, I did want to say Nick Milanovic's goal in that losing effort for Western Sydney Wanderers was a spicy meatball, that one. And I have to say, for all his many faults, Marco Rudan's continued faith across 2 different clubs in Nick Milanovic, I think, is completely vindicated. He was always spoken of in kind of hushed tones at the Western United Academy, like, oh, this is the kid, like, and he should be playing more first team games. But yeah, I just think he's a huge talent that maybe is a slightly underhyped. I would say. I think he's, maybe it's been a slow burn for him, but he's like, how many players in the A-League do we have, local players, trusted to start in that number 10 position and are performing consistently? It's him, and lately it's been Josh Nisbet playing as a 10, which I think we should talk about as well.
Yeah, we'll get on to that. Yeah, it's a good point. And it is a kind of silver lining in the Wanderers. There's just a bad vibe around that place, whether it's, the RBB and the kind of in the stands issues with security and all that. And by the way, I mean, we talk about, what makes Australian football fun. I feel like there is an inverse relationship between the amount of statements released by clubs or by supporters groups, and also, as you were talking before, the amount of think pieces that are out there. The more think pieces, the less fun we're having. It's very rare that, you're at a party, you're having an amazing time, and someone's like, you know what I should do? I should write a think piece about this party. Like, no one wants that. But yeah, it's just not a great time at the Wanderers, and it does feel like, just seeing some of the fans on social media. Oh, the vibes are bad. The vibes are not good, and it'd be interesting to see what they do to turn it around. This season, but also next season, if they kind of make big changes. I'd be surprised if they got rid of Roots, but it'd be interesting to see kind of what they do with that. But he probably hasn't got enough credit in the bank. But at the same time, I mean, he's been there a while now, and it's still, there's still issues in terms of the style of play and the consistency of performances. Every now and again, it's like, okay, yeah, they've worked it out. Okay, now they're going to go on a bit of a run. But I don't know. Should we move on to Melbourne City?
Yeah, look, I think when it sours with Rudan, it's unlikely to get better. I just don't. Yeah, but he's got he's got a while left to run on his contract. I guess Paul Lederer is a very wealthy man and would be able to pay the severance fee out of his own pocket. But he does have a long contract. So they're kind of locked into him.
Well, and the vibe
I want to dip into. Sorry.
The vibe I get is that there is a good relationship between Rudes and Lederer, which I think is always important. I think you underestimate how much personal relationships can maybe just give you an extra 6 months, just give you that extra bit of room to maneuver and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But obviously, we need the Wanderers to be kind of back and firing for the good of the league. Melbourne City 1, Wellington Phoenix 0. I gotta say, Tolga Arslan back. We never found out what he said. Maybe he called the referee a stupid white bastard. Maybe that would be the ultimate plot twist. We never know he's going to be back. He's playing. He set up the goal for Melbourne City, which I love to see, but costly result for the Knicks because now they're in second and heading toward ninth, presumably, Josh.
Yeah, well, speaking of what Tolga Arslan said,
yes,
if we're going to base our opinion of the Sam Kerr situation on one article in The Sun and that becoming the dominant narrative, I think we can totally trust Tolga Arslan's agent, Fahid Ben Khalfala, saying on A-League's Off Air that what he said to the referee was, "I'm going to smash you in the media." And it potentially the referee misunderstood and thought, "I'm going to smash you," like was a threat of violence.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I'm going to smash you, and then if you just sorry, what was
in the media,
just cut out in the minute. I'm going to smash you in a game of Monopoly. You got to say maybe you said the quiet part out loud, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to smash you in the media.
He was inspired in this game though, and it was a weird start because this is only the second time that Melbourne City have benched Jamie McLaren in an A-League game ever.
Wow.
Which I thought was eyebrow raising for sure. Max Caputo, the 18-year-old striker who's been on the periphery for so long. He's been playing NPL, like in their senior NPL team since he was like 15. And you just sort of, it felt like the boat had kind of sailed for him. And then you look at his birth date and you're like, oh, he's got loads of time. He's 18. I was like, oh, Caputo hasn't really kicked on. And it's like, he's a literal child. But he got an opportunity. He was so unlucky not to score in this game. It was ridiculous. He had quite a few chances and it wasn't like they were bad finishes. It was just like a ridiculous save from Alex Paulson or like a miraculous clearance off the line from Finn Sermon. So yeah, he played quite well, I thought. But Tolga Arslan was the fulcrum involved in literally everything that Melbourne City did, and he made such a huge difference. And Wellington, they went, especially away from home, they don't mind sitting back and absorbing pressure and playing on the break. Costa Barbarouses had the one big chance, the big one-on-one at the end, which he should have scored. And you saw his reaction. He was like, "Oh, it didn't go in. Like, I'm not used to that happening this season." He's like, "What? What just happened?" And Ben Old had a half chance, I guess he came quite close to, which he lashed over the bar. Little fingertip save from Jamie Young. But no, I thought Melbourne City were very good value for their win on the balance of play.
Jess Samut says J-Mac off to Auckland, surely. Yeah, it kind of seems that way. It seems like if you read between the lines, it is heading in that direction, which, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to know if A-League or if football fans in Auckland view Jamie McLaren as this amazing kind of player or signing or whatever, because he's not like a marquee name like internationally. And I just don't know how much local Auckland fans are following the A-League and saying, oh, we've got the top goal scorer or whatever. But, it'd be interesting to see. Maybe he can, score a boatload of goals over there and really kickstart that team. It's interesting just on Auckland. Did you see that it seems like their name is going to be is it the Black Knights? Is that kind of what's been reported or floated?
Well, I think it might be their nickname. So we're not. Okay. It's not clear yet whether that's going to be the official name of the team or it's going to be like Auckland FC, Auckland Athletic, the Black Knights, as in like an English football style nickname. I'm not sure if you can bestow an unofficial nickname yourself, but I guess if you have Bill Foley money, you can pretty much do whatever you like. It's something to do with his alma mater, as the Americans like to say. And apparently the NHL wouldn't let him call his team the Black Knights. And he had to go with Golden Knights instead. But the A-League is probably more flexible. It's like, please, we need your expansion money, please.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, be interested to kind of see what happens. Let us know what you want the Auckland team to be called. Personally, I would like Atletico de Auckland. I think would be an amazing name. It's also interesting as well, just speaking of expansion teams, this Canberra thing. We were told by Nick Garcia like a month ago, I think that there'll be something in the next 2 weeks or something regarding Canberra, and there wasn't. And then Michelle Heyman has kind of come out and apparently said that she wants to know what's happening with the men's team, otherwise she's going to have to leave or whatever. And there's again a report that's going to be something out this week. It does feel a little bit like, have you ever seen Snatch? And there's the scene where Jason Statham's character is asking the guy who's cooking sausages, hey, what's happening with those sausages? He goes, 2 minutes. And he goes, it was 2 minutes 5 minutes ago. And then like 2 minutes later in the scene, he goes, are those sausages ready yet? He's like, 5 minutes. And you're like, what? How's that working? It does feel like that's what's happening with Canberra. By the way, I rewatched that movie recently. All-time movie. Unbelievable movie.
Look, I think Canberra should happen if the sort of sources of funding get approved. That's the mail that I'm hearing. But there's been a lot of tearing out of hair really in the Canberra Times and things about where that leaves the A-League women's team, and if there's fears for their future, which I think would be crazy. I mean, they get pretty decent attendances there, and I know they haven't been that competitive this season, but Michelle Heyman is a great story, getting back into the Matildas, and Vesna Milivojevic, if we'd acted early enough, should be a Matilda as well. So they're a very watchable team a lot of the time. So and they have a pretty dedicated supporter base. So I think it would be very silly if that was cast aside as part of the new men's team. Whether or not they're a joint entity or just two different Canberra teams, one for the men's and one for the women's, two different clubs, I don't think it really matters, but I think we still need both.
Yeah, Simon says Newcastle or Canberra first, do you reckon? Both have been close for ages. Yeah, it does feel like that. Paletti makes the point. It feels like the Canberra expansion has been 2 weeks away since this time last year, but I could be wrong. Yeah, 100%.
It's like the national second division, so.
Yeah, I remember actually we had, when I was doing a show with Lucy Zelich on the World Game on SBS, we had like the Canberra expansion guy on at the time, and he was saying that they were close then. And, there was talk of like PSG were involved, and there's been talk over the years that, Red Bull wanted to be involved. And it will be interesting to see when it actually turns out kind of what the details are. The devil is often in the detail. Look, let's move on to Adelaide United 1, Victory 2. Important win for Victory, but brutal for Adelaide. It does kind of feel like that was the end of their season. One thing that is fun about it, though, Iran Kunda's goal, shooting so far out and kind of so early that I really don't think Paul Izzo expected it. I'm watching it. I was watching it on a Twitter clip, so I was like, wow, what a goal from Iran Kunda. And even when he shot, I was like, no way, he shot from there. Like, it just, his striking ability is ridiculous. The fact that he can catch someone out from that far out with pure, just like, oh my God, what a ridiculous place to take a shot. Insane.
It's bonkers, isn't it? Just the shooting power is like his number one attribute. It's something he's always going to have. Even like if he's not playing well, if he's playing well, it doesn't matter. He's going to have a bullet of a long range shot. And I think, that's what's so eye catching about him. Like watching him at that tournament that I called in Shepparton, these AFC qualifiers. Watching him against players his own age was just so funny. Like it's just like it's not fair.
Yeah. No, totally.
And it's great. Like I also enjoyed him doing a backflip, like very intentionally thinking about running to the Adelaide fans and then spotting the Victory fans in the opposite corner and doing a massive peel off Adebayor style, so he could do his big backflip in front of the Victory supporters. Because they've had beef in the past. And I think that's all good fun, to be honest. I really enjoyed the pantomime and the theater of that, and honestly the shot of him like celebrating and then all the fans in the stand obviously giving him the finger, because you're going to, like, if a home player comes in and does that in front of the away end, regardless of context. I thought that photo was like, that's cold. That's so cool.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I love a good celebration in front of the away fans. Like, kind of to G them up or whatever. I think it's awesome. Anytime it happens, I mean, Adebayor, it's still remembered today. I mean, that one's amazing because it's the length of the field. Like, it's not like they were just there and you went from, like, the fact that you sprinted down the other end and like near from. God, that is funny. But anyway, Adebayor.
We did have an incident of that in MPL Victoria this week that did not go well. It ended with the game being abandoned. So
yes,
look, you got to be careful in some contexts. While I'm venting my spleen on that, I didn't enjoy something that wasn't fun for me this week was people looking at that clip that everybody's seen, I think, that was going around soccer Twitter this weekend of the fan blow up and going, well, you gotta wonder about the national second division. Like, neither of these two teams have applied for the national second division. Like, what do you mean? What do you actually mean? And what they mean is no ethnic clubs. And
you gotta.
This had nothing to do with the ethnicity of either fan base. It was a player celebrating in front of the away fans, and then some words were exchanged between supporter groups, and it kicked off. Like, it has nothing to do with that. So I think it's just a failure of security and policing, really.
It is funny with like being an Australian football fan. You're kind of like torn between like, there was a few stories this week that almost seemed like it was coordinated. But anyway, maybe that's a bit of a conspiracy theory. But there was
it was a plant.
No. But so what I mean is, like, there was this story this week. I think it was in Melbourne. I think it was on like Channel 7 News down in Melbourne, and it was this thing of, okay, I think the police officer, the police spokesman came out and said, like, we're investigating this kind of 50-person brawl between Sydney FC fans and Victory fans about a game that happened a month ago, right? And I guess policing, it does seem like there's an incredible delay on what happens in the policing one. But it was this kind of oddly, ridiculously timed thing of like, oh, okay, a month ago something happened, and even though like everyone saw the footage a month ago, now we're investigating, even though, as far as I can see, like, no fans have asked the police to press charges or investigate it or whatever. Like, it was interesting that the timing came also on the eve of the start of the AFL season. Josh, you're a bit more connected to this world. What the hell is round zero? Does that count? Is that a friendly? Is that a like? I was just saying round zero. What a round zero game.
It counts, and it's also not officially called round zero.
So it
is called opening round, or OR. But everyone started referring to it informally as round zero, and that quickly took off and abandoned any of the AFL's official naming conventions. It's just a whole lot of teams playing, like, not all the teams, but like some of the biggest profile teams playing a bunch of interstate games. As my door mysteriously opens behind me, the poltergeist at it again.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, there you go. AFL having so is next week round one? Or is next week?
Yes. Yeah, next week is round one. So it's become very confusing as someone who has to cover this competition a little bit to say, oh, yes, in round one, which is round two for a lot of teams. But they were playing it in different places, trying to export AFL to other states other than Victoria. So in Sydney and, up north. So,
well, in a year's time, maybe we can hear about an AFL player who threw up the back of a taxi or something like that. Maybe there's going to be a round.
Have to wait a year.
Yeah, well, who knows what the police. Anyway, but yeah, it's this odd thing between like kind of being like, oh my god, the police and the security are ridiculous, in Australian football, which I think is true, and then at the same time, there's videos come out of like people getting knocked out at suburban football grounds, and you're like, oh yeah, that one's a little bit harder to defend. But anyway, honestly, but there are dickheads everywhere, and even in Australian football, but all over the place. Look, let's quickly go through some of the other results. Perth 2, Newcastle Jets 2. This was something like the 5th or 6th time in a row that this game has been 2-2. This game is incredible. It was amazing to watch this game because even though the Jets were leading 2-0, you always felt like Perth could get back into it just because of what they've done this season, which is a lot of late comebacks, a lot of late victories, and it was so fun to watch. But Adam Taggart, another 2 goals, and it's going to be interesting to see the 3-way golden boot race between Stamatopoulos, Fornaroli, who also scored a double in his game, and Stamatopoulos missed a few chances, and then Taggart as well. Who do you think of those 3 is going to be on top at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to. It seemed like the air had sort of come out of the Perth Glory balloon for a while there. It seemed like it was time to sell your Perth stocks, but all of a sudden, the Tagster is back at it again.
So good.
It was funny because their poor run of form immediately coincided with the new ownership coming in. I was like, oh, finally we have new owners, but suddenly the team has nothing to play for anymore.
They were doing a Viduka. They were doing a Viduka or a Walcott. They were playing out of their skin to get the money, and now the money's come through. They're like, all right, guys, just everyone just relax, except Taggart. He's going for the golden boot.
Ross Pelligra turning up like, what's going on, guys? And they're like, yeah, you're still going to pick us. Like,
what, is there any money prize for winning the golden boot? I don't think so. But do the A-League players is that like a $25,000 prize or something? There should be. I know the league is strapped for cash, but we got so obsessed over the fact that MacArthur and the Mariners were playing off. What was it, $150,000 or something? There should be some. In the AFL, used to win like a Toyota or something. Wasn't that the old? I remember. Look, Sharon Violations has run their memes via YouTube, but I'm sure that was the big thing, that back in the day you won a Toyota because they sponsored. Surely we need the golden boot. An Isuzu Ute. You should win an Isuzu Ute if you win.
Well, then Jamie McLaren would have a fleet of 5 Isuzu Utes.
He could open up a car sales business.
he could open up a construction company at that point. Hey, and there's plenty of real estate agents pumping around in the A-League, as we know, in Australian football.
There's plenty of construction magnates in the ownership groups. So, look, I think this has got a lot of synergy, this thing. But yeah, who do you think of the 3?
Look, it's tough to say because the Newcastle and Perth, maybe aren't as strong as Victory, arguably, or aren't as high in the table. I think they're probably going to be involved in more high-scoring games. So I would probably put Taggart as the favorite at this point, just because Victory don't score that many goals.
I think Taggart as well. Interesting from Simon. Simon says, so does that mean that the women's golden boot winner wins an interest-free loan or something? Hey, look, depending on the size of the loan, that could be the best prize of the lot, with interest rates climbing up in Australia. I mean, imagine you get like 500,000 interest-free. Thank you very much. Michelle Heyman is just going to be cheering. I don't know. But look, let us know if there is a prize, a catch prize or some kind of prize attached to it. If there's not, there should be. Look, one team that's going to be thinking about prizes, Central Coast Mariners 3 away to MacArthur. They've done it again. They did it in the AFC Cup. Now they've done it in the A-League. Now they've come top of the table. Mark Jackson, the guy who I'd never heard of before when he took over this team at the start of the season. And, I think we all thought they were really going to struggle without Montgomery. In the first few weeks of the season, it felt like, this team's really going to struggle. Halfway through the season,
I think we all thought he was a basketball commentator on ESPN. But
that was the only thing I could think for the first about 15 weeks, which was only a few weeks ago, of the season. Every time I heard the name Mark Jackson, I could only think of "There goes that man," which is what Mark Jackson used to say. Every single
goes that man.
Yeah, that's what he used to say every time LeBron would do a dunk or whatever. It was such a bizarre thing. But I guess because I kept thinking he was a basketball commentator, maybe didn't give him the respect that he deserves. But what he's done with the Mariners is pretty impressive. They're top of the table. And like I said, they'd lost Tulio mid-season. There was rumors about Angel Torres. Josh Nisbet has been fantastic, but the Mariners, and despite there's talk this week from Ray Gadd about their CEO who's just left, and he was so popular, and it seemed like he'd done such a good job because the Mariners for so long were a basket case. We were basically saying they're going to be the first team to get relegated. One of the reasons that we were even talking about promotion and relegation was because we need to relegate teams like the Mariners because they were so bad for so many years. Turn it around. apparently he's out against, his own desires. But Mariners, top of the table. Pretty incredible.
Sensational. There were so many things that I liked about this game. I really liked Josh Nisbet's goal. He's second in 2 weeks, second really spectacular goal. I really liked Ryan Edmondson's not that athletic cartwheel celebration, because I was expecting, having seen Aaron Kunda in the previous game, I was just expecting him to launch into the backflip, and it was just a straight cartwheel that wasn't quite upright, and I was like, it was all right. It's a 4. Wasn't exactly going to win gold at the Olympics, but I enjoyed him attempting it anyway.
I do remember the famous headline when Hernandez, the Brazilian attacking midfielder, I think he was playing against his old team and he scored, and his trademark celebration was the backflip. And he came out in the press and said it was the saddest backflip of my career, which is a hell of a statement. One thing I really liked about this game was Mikael, the Brazilian right back, in the tradition of Brazilian right backs. I'll say Cafu because I don't like to think about the other famous one now for what he's done. But Mikael, getting up the pitch, 2 assists, being involved in so many attacks, what a player. And again, one thing that's super important in the A-League, and I think Graham Arnold under Sydney FC, they were amazing at their foreign signings. Their foreign signings were just constantly on point. And one of the things I think the other teams have struggled with is their foreign signings. But the Mariners' foreign signings have been spectacular. We talked about Tilio, we talked about Torres. A lot of these guys have seemingly come out of nowhere.
Barcelona,
back in the day. Yeah.
It's just randomly popped in and started scoring almost immediately.
When Jason Cummings came out here, we all thought who is this guy? He's just going to come out here and get on the piss and and he was spectacular. They've done really well with their signings, and Mikael seems to be another one. So honestly, really spectacular stuff from the Mariners.
I love watching Mikael Docker. Well, look at us. Sharon violation a few minutes ago. Now we're waxing lyrical about the Dockers, but Docker is very entertaining. He is probably the most attacking right back the league has seen in some time. I don't really know if we've had any right backs over the journey who've been, those sort of flair players. I remember Melbourne Victory in the early years of the A-League had a left back called Alessandro, who was always trying little roulette spins and step overs and stuff.
Yeah, I think Andy Merrick hated him after about 2 games or something, because I remember, obviously as a child of the mid 2000s Nike Jogo Bonito campaigns, I thought any Brazilian that we got in the league was going to be incredible. It turned out Fred was incredible that season. But yeah, I remember Alessandro was involved, but I think Merrick just got the shits with him after about 2 games. I was like, nah, this guy is. Merrick's face suggests that he's not the most MAFFS kind of guy. He's not really a big person. Kind of on the fun is the most important thing, and it definitely seemed like Alessandro fell afoul of that.
I did love the 3 of them, because I think it was Claudinho, Alessandro, and Fred, and they were billed as the trio from Rio.
That's right. You know what? Whatever agent sold that, he was like, look, he's probably shown them all the highlights of Fred, and they're like, okay, this Fred guy looks really good. And then he's just tacked on 2 other clients. There was a time where I feel like it was 2008, 2009, where every A-League team had a Brazilian. It was like you had to have, you got to have a player from Asia, a certain amount of Australian players, a player from Brazil, and then you can have 1 or 2 other international players. But it was insane. There must have been some agent in Brazil around 2008, 2009. Must have been killing it. But yeah,
well, Ernie Merrick took credit for that. He reckoned he made it popular. And he said when Carlos Hernandez arrived, he said, everyone is going to have a Costa Rican. Which I didn't quite work out.
Ernie Merrick, if you'll take credit for making Brazilian footballers popular, I mean, that's the most LinkedIn post I think I've ever heard. I mean, that's to go, I was an innovator, bringing Brazilian footballers after they'd won 5 World Cups. Yeah, maybe not the. At one point, I believe Brazil's second second biggest export, in that the most money coming into the country was footballers they were selling overseas. That's how many footballers were going. Brazil. You can watch any random European game and there's a Brazilian, like any kind of like, oh yeah, there's a team from Iceland playing as a team from Georgia, and there's two Brazilians arguing on the pitch, about a bad tackle or something. It's incredible. Look, we'll quickly kind of get through everything else. Sydney won, Brisbane Roar won. Look, I don't have too much to say about this. There was a bit of a controversy about the red card early in the first half. Was it? Wasn't it? Blah, blah. Brisbane fans say yes, it was a dangerous tackle. Sydney FC fans say no, and it kind of ruined the game. I mean, it did, because Max Burgess was pulled off, because they needed to shore up the defense, which I thought ruined the game completely. But anyway, look, I just quickly say on that kind of tackle, you see them happening a little bit more and more, and I think one of the problems is, or one of the reasons that you're seeing it more and more, is because not every team, a lot of teams are trying to press more. There is this obsession about pressing, which means you don't necessarily fly into tackles like you used to, like feet off the ground, but you're sprinting in to literally press the player to try and win the ball. If the players then play first time, which the best way to beat the press is to play first time, you're often going to have these things where, because the ball is moving so quickly and the players are coming in so fast, he's half a second late or something. But, otherwise, if he had been half a second early, I'd say, oh, great tackle. He's pressing well. That's the style that Sydney FC want to do. Brisbane Roar can't play through this. It's so dangerous. Anyway, I just think it's going to happen more and more because of the tactics implemented. And yeah, I don't know what, because I can see both sides. I can see that, it's potentially dangerous tackle, but also,
I think the game just becoming faster as a result of that. Like, means in world football, you just end up getting more red cards, and when VAR is looking at everything in slow motion.
Yeah.
But honestly, the red card leaders still NPL Victoria. I was commentating St Albans yesterday, and last season they had 11 red cards in 26 games, which was a very impressive record. They used to joke that they were better with 10. So I don't know if they started doing it intentionally after a while. But still, I still think the state leagues are the standard bearers.
All right. Look, we're going to wrap it up soon, but we'll just go to some of your comments that came through via Twitter. We asked, obviously, what made Australian football fun for you this week, and it's good to mention the young Matildas qualifying for the Under-20 World Cup, winning in the ice and the snow, looking skillful and confident all the way. Yeah, we did talk a lot about them last week and that crazy game that they played in the snow, but, great result for them, and maybe flew a bit under the radar because of the whole Sam Kerr thing and all the other things that are happening in Australian football, but a really, really good result and performance, and a lot of positives, because this generation of Matildas is coming to the end and they are so popular, and it's really important that the next generation can be a success or can replicate similar or even exceed that level of success. So really good signs there, Josh, don't you think?
Yeah, hugely. They were very professional and very impressive. So I think we went through a real dry spell of our national youth teams across all age groups and genders, really not qualifying for enough big tournaments. And this is a really good step in the right direction. And they managed the games really well. And, they came through some pretty tough moments with flying colours. So for a lot of the next players and the nearly players who've all come through the A-League women, this is I think should be a big moment in their careers going to this tournament.
We always love when ideas come through. Joshua Biff has said via Twitter, we should start an Australian Super Cup to take place in whatever city bids for it the week before the home and away season starts. The winner of the championship versus the winner of the Australia Cup, Premier's Plate, second place, whatever. Trophy should just be the old preseason Challenge Cup. So we see that, obviously, it's kind of an idea of the Community Shield that you see in England, the Spanish Super Cup, and I think the Italian Super Cup. It was like that, and now they've changed it to be like a 4-team tournament that they do in Saudi Arabia, which, hey, maybe that can be some good money coming in. I don't know if the Saudi Arabian fans really would want to, tune out, come to the stadium.
Hey, do we know any former A-League executives who might be working in Saudi Arabia? I'm not sure.
hey, maybe they think Aziz Bayic playing with Cristiano Ronaldo for Al Nassr, they're like, wow, this left back is so amazing. Where does he come from? And they're like, the A-League. Like, wow, we need
Do
to
you
see
think
more of
Aziz Bayic is going to be one of those Australian players who pop up somewhere random overseas and become like a local hero? Is Aziz Bayic going to be like an Al Nassr legend?
Oh, I'd hope so. It'd be hilarious if he was the one who got the statue and not Cristiano Ronaldo. Lee Broxham Facts asks, what could the A-League's equivalent of Atletico, he says Atletico Bilbao, I should point out it's Athletic Club de Bilbao, be where they only play Basque players. So I think this has been talked about a bit. Adelaide United seems like it could be like that. It seems like it's kind of closest to that. Maybe it would be interesting if a second Brisbane team came in, if they made that their identity as a real kind of a way to get fans away from the Brisbane Roar, which I think maybe
I think
work.
per capita, the most Socceroos produced, there was someone who looked into this, wrote a book about the Socceroos. I think it might have been Andy Howe's stat, actually, in his book of Socceroos. Ipswich in Queensland.
Wow.
West, of Brisbane. So
yeah,
that might be the spot, to be honest.
Yeah, and I also remember as well, if you think kind of early Ange days at Brisbane, one thing he was really good at is bringing through a lot of kind of young Queensland talent. There was Robbie Cruz, Tommy Orr, Michael Zulo as well at the time. And it was an exciting time because he was bringing through a lot of great young Queensland talent. Maybe we should see more of that. We should say, by the way, Ange winning 4-0 away to Aston Villa in the race for fifth place, whatever. Huge result for Ange.
Yeah, massive. They always outperform their XG, Tottenham. They just make a habit of it. I think that's just Heung-min Son being Heung-min Son.
Amazing.
But even Timo Werner scored. That was how much of a paddling it was. And yes, it was a red card, but they were already 2-0 up when John McGinn was sent off. So yeah, phenomenal result away in Birmingham against a team that has performed way beyond expectations this season and is actually one of the big historic clubs in England with a lot of money behind them. They've got pretty wealthy owners, Aston Villa.
Yeah.
So it's not as if they're like a mid-table team. They're Champions League quality in that side.
And also, I think like there's going to be a big talk this season at the end of the year, like who was the best manager, and obviously the title race is probably going to take away from that. But in that fourth position, you know, there's talk of, Unai Emery's done such an amazing job of turning Aston Villa around, and, you know, fair play to him, he has. But also, I feel like with Ange, you know, there was a few weeks there where it wasn't going so well. They've kind of come back out of that injury crisis. Son was away in the Asian Cup, and they're firing again. And honestly, if they didn't have that injury crisis where, I think it was against Chelsea, where Van de Ven went down, I think it was Romero got sent off. Madison went out for 6 weeks or something like that, and all in the one game. I genuinely think they would be maybe not quite challenging for the title, but just below that, which given they lost Harry Kane at the start of the season, and it's incredible the job Andrew's doing there, which, you know, again, not the hottest take, but, you know, what are you going to do?
I like this article. I think it was news.com.au, but some sort of agency article about Ange's win. The Australian this week said reaching the Champions League would not be a Willy Wonka golden ticket for his club. But at the second paragraph, but the defeat left Villa feeling as sick as Augustus Gloop, the gluttonous boy who gets him. And then they had to explain the plot of Willy Wonka, which is never a sign of a good reference.
You know, I did actually just watching clips from the Oscars this morning. John Mulaney explaining the plot to Field of Dreams, which, if you haven't seen it, is essentially a movie about a guy who builds a baseball field for ghosts to play in, classic ghost players. Maybe we should do that one year. We'll get a field, a literal farmers league, and we'll get the people to nominate which ghost should be in the team. Incredible stuff.
Well, I think the ghost that keeps opening my study door is just got to be nominated at some point.
Okay, this comes in from John. Should the A-League introduce additional visa spot for players that share the same or very similar names with some of the past and present stars of world football? Seems like a genius marketing strategy to me. Just some of the current options available. So he's got Ronaldo, a defensive midfielder who's 27 years old. I love it, Brazil. He has Pelé, a defensive midfielder who seems to be Portuguese and I'm guessing Angolan or Mozambique, 32 years old. Kaká, an attacking midfielder, Brazilian, 32 years old. Mohamed Saleh, that's with an E instead of an A. He is a centre back. I tell you what, looking at the profile picture, he looks a lot like him as well. 30-year-old player. I think this is a great idea. I love this. Big ad campaign next season. You've heard of Pelé. You've heard of Kaká. You've heard of Salah. Well, they're all in the A-League. And you just go, you don't have to, really explain the details that, they just happen to share the same name. John, that's a great idea. It's a great way to get people through.
It's basically a YouTube clickbait, but for an actual match, Yeah, it's ambush marketing.
And you know what? We were talking last week about, nicknames and stuff. Well, we have the Kiwi Messi and all this kind of stuff. We don't need it. What are we going to say? The Brazilian Ronaldo for the defensive midfielder who's 27 years old? We don't need to say that. We would just say, yeah. Brazilian Ronaldo, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, my God, one of my favorite players ever. You can see him play for the Mariners right now. Incredible stuff. Paletti says, talking about what made Australian football fun for them. All the clubs that got around and actually participated in the Pride celebration and made things as colourful as they do. What made it not so fun is a lot more could have been done, especially since we're in the third year of things. Clubs know it's happening. Yeah, good point. Be interested to see, what more they can do next year. Hopefully more, but it's good that continues to grow, and obviously that everyone gets to enjoy football as they should. Josh,
and it's a phenomenal merchandising opportunity for the clubs as well. Sell a jersey.
That is great. Is there anything else you wanted to cover off before we go?
Yeah, look, Joe has asked Frank who would win in a managerial fashion show. I think we've got to park that, but maybe for next week. But no, that's really all from me. I'm looking forward to seeing Perth Glory play Western Sydney on next weekend, because I just think if Perth get a win in another 90th minute Taggart winner, I think we could get another Redan blow up in the presser. So I feel like it's a ticking time bomb at this point, and I'm always just clicking on the Mark Redan pressers, thinking, oh, what has he said this time? Oh, is it going to be spicy? But weirdly enough, they're playing. They've got a midweek game against Melbourne City tomorrow night. It has been absolutely baking hot in Melbourne, so I'm not sure what the temperature is going to be like. It's been absolutely searing. But yeah, so we've got a bit of midweek A-League to tide us over, which is nice. And Thursday night game with Western United.
And also I guess Wednesday night game, Thursday morning maybe it's Thursday night for you guys. Odisha v Central Coast Mariners in AFC Cup. Mariners with a 4-0 first leg victory. It'll be amazing.
Take that, Roy Krishna.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, God, I would love to see more Mariners fans get to some of these games. Look, I know cost of living is difficult and price of tickets and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like runs in Asia, they rarely happen, especially now. But I think there's some of the funnest things that can happen in Australian football. Adelaide's run in the early Asian Champions League era was so exciting. Obviously, the Wanderers run. We haven't really had a decent run. Victory have never really had a decent run. Sydney FC, I think, have got to a quarter final of an Asian Champions League as best. But this run from the Mariners really does excite me. I feel like more people should get around it, but
it's it's another multi-sport venue that they're playing at. The Kalinga Stadium apparently has facilities for not only football but athletics, field hockey, tennis, table tennis, basketball, volleyball, wall climbing, and swimming. So they're spreading themselves a little thin. I don't know. Is wall climbing a sport, or is it just got handholds on the outside of the stadium?
Yeah, exactly. Is that just how you get into the stadium? No, it's a sport.
There's no staircases, but it's an extra leisure pursuit.
Saved on staircases. Look, thank you so much for all your questions, your comments, your ideas. Please send them in. Please let us know about your favorite Australian football cult hero and where. And the more obscure, the better. If it turns out that there's someone in the Icelandic third division who's Aussie and absolutely revered by 100 supporters or something. I'd love to see that. But yes, thank you so much. We should be back next week, Monday at 8 p.m. as per usual. I will let you know on social if we're not. But Josh, thank you so much for this week, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Dolt.
All right.